Hey there, my name is Steve Johnson. Welcome to the session. This is a virtual session, Building Engineers in K-5 Classrooms. Doing this for the Western WRESA Innovate and Inspire virtual conference. Really glad to be a part of it. And before we get started with the actual session, I thought it would be helpful to give you like a timing and table of contents because I know with the longer videos, sometimes it's helpful to have that chunked up and given the times. So I hope you enjoy the session, and at the end, if you got any questions, please email me at sjohnson@serf.org. All right, welcome to Building Engineers in K-5 Classrooms. I'm Steve Johnson, work as a STEM specialist out of the Serve Center in UNC Greensboro. I'm really happy to provide this virtual session to the Western WRESA Virtual STEM Conference, Innovate and Inspire. I do have a short link to this presentation, and so I put this on the first slide to make sure that you can pull it up at any time if you'd like to follow along. And that's just bit.ly/WRESA-K5ENG. And that is case sensitive, so make sure you get the capitals right. The only one that's not capitals is the last two letters, N and G. All right, so just to give you a little bit of background on who I am, this is a picture of me and my family. I've got three girls, Emily, 15, Kenna, 13, and Hannah is just turned 10. This is just a picture of us at the zoo over Christmas break. And that is my lovely wife, Bridget, who also works in education, has since I met her in when she was a fourth grade teacher and I was a second grade teacher. I am a STEM specialist, as I mentioned before. Before I moved into this position, I moved here just recently in last November. With the Serve Center. Before that, I've worked in the school system for the first 20 plus years of my career. I started off as a kindergarten and then second grade teacher when I first started teaching in 1998 in Moore County Schools, which is right smack in the middle of the state of North Carolina. Loved my teaching there. I did kindergarten and second grade, and I also taught in the computer lab to start off, and then I became a tech facilitator. Both at the elementary school, and then I worked in Cabarrus County for 5 years as a tech facilitator at a middle school and a high school. And then I came back home to Moore County Schools. For the past 8 years, I've been Assistant Director of Technology for Digital Learning and STEM. And so I've been working with a great team of TFs there to bring engineering, design, robotics across the county in that role. I now work at the Serve Center as a STEM specialist, so this work that we've been doing in Moore County that kind of took off, I'm now working to spread across the state of North Carolina, so I'm really glad to be here in the western region to spread the word. My email here is sjohnson@serve.org. Please reach out anytime you've got questions, anything you want any help with, I'll be glad to help. Anything in the realm of K-5 engineering, design, and robotics, I'll be glad to help you with that. And the website that we're using and working out of is k5engineers.org. So, in this session, real quick, just to give you the agenda and the rundown, we're going to do just a quick intro and a quick context of the work, kind of how the ball started rolling in North Carolina as far as building engineers in K-5 classrooms. And then we're going to talk about the engineering design process and what it is. You know, what does it look like in the actual K-5 classroom? How does it work? What are the steps? And then we'll dive in a little bit to the why. Why is it important to use the process in elementary schools? And what are the outcomes that you should be looking for in your classroom when you start? And then the real meat of this session is going to be some real classroom examples. So spend about 25 or 30 minutes really going through actual classroom examples of kids doing this process in our daily instruction. And so I've got a lot of K-5 examples. I also threw in some 6-8 and some 9-12 just to kind of give you an idea of how that progresses after elementary school and how the depth kind of changes. And also a lot of those activities that you do in 6, 8, and 9-12 you can bring down to a K-5 classroom as long as you change the content up. And last but not least, we'll talk about the new Building Engineers in K-5 Classrooms initiative, which I'm really happy to be a part of. How that's crossing the state, and what are some next steps as far as that initiative goes and how you can engage with it. So without further ado, let's just get into some introduction and a quick context. So essentially, this work started in Moore County Schools about 7 or 8 years ago. Like I say, it was myself and a couple of our TFs. We call them Digital Integration Facilitators, DIFs in Moore County. Um, and basically, we had a meeting with just 4 or 5 of us, and we had a bunch of robotics kits that were gathering dust. So we had some EV3s, but before that, if you know robotics, the version before the Lego EV3 was the NXT. And so we had a couple of kits just sitting around gathering dust. No one knew what to do with them. So we dusted them off and decided, let's try out some robotics clubs after schools. And so after school robotics clubs, we started in 5 or 6 of our elementary schools. If you've ever started a robotics club, you know the interest is off the charts. And so quickly, a lot of momentum around getting robotics clubs started in all of our schools. And so we expanded robotics clubs into every single school, K5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. And again, the ball just kept rolling. There was a lot of interest. Kids were really interested in this. And so the next big piece of it is we thought about, well, we've got all this interest and engagement. How do we bring this into our classroom? Instead of it being after school, how can we bring this into our daily work? And so that was a key moment for us because we started this engineering thread. And essentially what we did is we got a group of teachers and DIFs together over the summer for a week. And we got elementary teachers in a room with facilitators, and we just kind of worked all week on creating 12 engineering mini projects that went directly into our pacing guides. And so we did 2 per grade level, kindergarten through 5. And the way we did it is we started off with one project per grade level had robotics with it, and then one project per grade level did not have robotics with it. And so that was the 12, and we launched that year. We did PD across the county just to let people know it was accessible, and it really took off. The teachers really enjoyed it. The kids had a great time with it. They were learning content in a more engaging way, and they were working in flexible problem-solving groups. So just was a great success. And so that fueled this next piece, which was the Digital Teaching Learning Grants. If you don't know, hopefully you do. Please Google it. If you don't, the North Carolina Digital Learning Initiative offers grants to school systems to fuel this kind of work. And so we applied for and were awarded 3 different grants to do this work throughout our K-5 classrooms and even into our 6-12 classrooms, including being named one of our Innovation Academies for North Carolina. So what that meant was we were a place where folks could come and see more about how to get started in their own classroom. How does it work? You know, actually watching kids do it. And that led to our annual conference, which is the picture right here. This is coming back again. I'll come back again to this later at the end of the session. But this is the Building Engineers in K-5 Classrooms Conference. It's hosted by Moore County Schools. This is our biggest gym, Pinecrest High School. It's an elementary robotics and engineering showcase, and so you see we'll get 200 or 300 kids from all of our elementary schools to compete, and at the same time the folks that come can also learn more about how to get started with the classroom, not just robotics but all engineering and high quality STEM. So that was kind of the quick context, and so this snowball kept getting pushed down the hill. A lot of interest throughout the state, and that's led me to my new position, which is I've transitioned to kind of leading this as a statewide initiative with the sponsorship of North Carolina DPI. And so I'll provide more information at the end, but just a little bit of a kind of a tease on a new initiative that you guys can take part in, and the conference as well, which is coming up in April. All right, so what is it? Engineering design process. So what is it that we're doing with our kids? So this is the process that we landed on in Moore County. So this is the engineering design process. If you're brand new to it, it's essentially a process, an activity, a lesson where you ask a question, you give a challenging task to students, and you let them figure out in groups how to best solve it, how to best attack that problem. And then see what happens whenever they mess it up. Whenever they fail, how do they then improve and fix their designs? And so that's the engineering design process. If you Google it, you'll probably find a ton of different ways of what this looks like. You might have different words, but it's all generally the same idea. And so I'm just going to walk through it real quick. Essentially, what you do is you present students with a task. This could be, one of the examples we're going to listen to here in a little bit is, we have kindergartners build better houses for the three little pigs, right? And so, how can you build a house that's strong enough for the big bad wolf cannot knock it down? And so that's the task. That's the task. And from there, you have the students generate the questions. And so you just give the task and let the kids generate those questions. So what kind of materials can we use? How much time do we have? Can we get extras? If we run out, can we get extras? How many pieces of tape can we get? What's going to be the what's going to blow it down? So in our case, we would get a leaf blower or a hair dryer. And so that's when the kids ask the questions that they need to ask. And this is all done in problem-solving groups. So younger kids, we suggest partners. Smaller groups, older kids, groups of 3 or 4 are ideal. And so they're generating the questions as a group. The next step is to imagine, and so to brainstorm ideas. So now that you've asked your questions, just talk. Talk with each other. What could we do? What could be our plan of attack here? How can we create this? How can we meet this challenge? And then at that stage, they need to do something very important, which is very difficult at the beginning stages of this process. They have to choose the best idea. And the best idea doesn't necessarily have to be the best idea, but it can be a combination of ideas that the kids have put together. But they have to choose an idea to start with. And then at the end of them choosing the idea, they get to the next stage, which is the plan stage. So they have to draw a diagram, they have to gather the materials. We have them really spend good time in that planning stage because that's where you get a lot of meat out of the critical thinking. They're planning, they're drawing out, they're doing their budget. If there's a materials budget, like for example, if you've got cardboard for $5.50, if you've got each roll of tape for 25 cents, they have to do that in the planning phase. Once they have the planning phase done, they gather the materials and they get started. They create their prototype. They create their solution. They follow their first plan, but they test it out and they observe. So they try it out and they see how it works. And if you're doing this process well with kids, what you're looking for is failure. You want to see failure. If you get to this stage and all of your students succeed in the task, then your task wasn't hard enough, or your constraints weren't enough, or the materials were too easy. And so you want to, this whole process is designed for kids to experience failure productively. So we've been to conferences, when we first started this, we've been to conferences and you always hear about, failure is good and first attempt in learning, and you've got to teach kids how to persevere, but they never really taught us how. Like as a teacher, how do I do that? How do I get a growth mindset in my classroom? And so that's what this process does. It gives you a practical, easy on-ramp to doing those skills in the classroom. So they fail, and then they improve, right? So what can work better? How can I improve this? How can I make this better? And a lot of times you get this rapid prototyping, which they start with their plan, it doesn't work, they improve, they try again, improve, try again. And that's how that process goes. And that's also in that improved stuff where they reflect on how they can do it better the next time. So always at the end of this lesson, we always want to say, okay, if you had more time, if you had more materials, what could you do to make it better? How would it work better for you? And I'll also say real quick that this is a great sharing opportunity. So students seeing how other students are doing. How did you solve it? This is very much a collaborative process. All right, so that's the process itself. So again, you're baking failure right in. It's challenging tasks, flexible problem solving. It can be used with robotics and programming or traditional supplies, or it could be a blend. And the standards, it really hits those digital learning competencies. Iterative designer, the innovative designer strand, the ISTE student standards, NC K-12 computer science standards, and of course, all of this work is not fluff. And so we embed this work in our pacing. So we figure out what are the challenging standards that we need to address. How can we beef that up? And so it's always aligned to the North Carolina state standards when you do this in the classroom. So that's kind of the what. What is it? What are kids actually doing in the classroom? Now here's the why. So as we started rolling this out, we didn't know what we were going to get. we just started using the process with kids and kind of talked to teachers and kids about what was going on and what we were seeing, and really found some great outcomes that we honestly kind of fell into. We didn't map these out ahead of time. We were hoping some of these things would happen, but we didn't know it until it happened. So the primary outcomes you're going to see when you start doing this with your kids. First, you're going to increase the STEM access and equity for traditionally marginalized students. And so those students that have not been successful in school may not do great on the end of grade tests. They may be labeled not successful in school. These kids really come out and shine in this process. It's wonderful to see. It's really the most inspiring and engaging part of doing this with kids is, you see those kids that you normally wouldn't see shine in a classroom. They become leaders in this process. They get their hands on, engaging, their critical thinking, their communication skills. They really become leaders through this process. The best example I can give is, when we started, we would have teachers, when we would do our problem solving groups and our engineering tasks, they would put them into reading groups. And so that was always interesting because it always seemed like the highest reading groups had the most difficulty with this process because if you've taught for a while, you know that your kind of high flyers, they love a right or wrong answer. They love a straight path to get there. And this is the opposite of that. So it's really good for those kids to think differently about what happens when you fail and let them experience that and persevere through it. And then the kids that, again, like I said, traditionally not as successful, they really become leaders. And now you've got these higher kids asking these other kids in your class that haven't been as successful, they're asking them how to work it, how to do it, which is really cool. The next part here is just kind of demystifying and make real a wide variety of college and career pathways. So when you do this, we suggest that you talk to them about what they're doing. So what are the careers that you can do? If you're good at this, you could be an engineer. You could be a computer scientist. You could do, and there's a million types of engineering. If you're a good problem solver, you can use those skills and then talk to them about, in your district, what can they do in middle school? What can they do in high school to continue on? So always keep that conversation going with those kids. Second primary outcome, it's a real engaging way to build that modern graduate. So again, we talk a lot about the growth mindset, the 4 C's, collaborative problem solving, soft skills. You hear those are kind of buzzwords that we hear a lot in education. But if you want your kids in high school to graduate like this, you have to start in elementary school. You can't just start with CTE classes in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. You have to start building that passion and that want to do it in elementary school. And this is also just a very practical way. When you walk into a classroom that's doing this process with students, you are seeing creativity, critical thinking, collaboration. You are seeing communication. You are seeing growth mindset. It's happening in real time. And so there's no mistaking it. Once you see it, it helps people understand, okay, that's what it actually looks like. When I say 4 C's, this is what it looks like. Secondary outcomes. So just some secondary outcomes we were able to see. I love this one. This is an Easter project where they're trying to balance the peeps on top of a certain structure. They had a certain constraints as far as materials, and they finally got it to balance. So anyway, secondary outcomes. We've seen a lot of positive impacts on teacher practice beyond these lessons. So being less helpful, shifts in teachers' perspectives, that has been real powerful. So teachers view their students differently when they see them succeed in these tasks. And in Moore County, I'll just mention this, it takes a while to get there. You have to do this process and really be focused on it and have it pay off. But for us, we had our CTE credentials triple. And Moore County Schools is one of 3 districts to meet or exceed all student performance indicators for CTE in 2020 and 2021. And we attribute a good portion of that to the work we did in K-5 to get kids excited about these careers and to really pay it off with credentials, which are extremely important for our students to get. And last but not least, I put in here, it places a healthy tension on 6-12 schools. So if you're building these strategies in K-5, when you get to 6th, 7th, 8th grade in high school, we need to think differently. You know, our kids expect things differently. They expect to be engaged more in this kind of work. And that's a good, healthy tension to have in a school system. So, the meat of today's session is going to be some classroom examples. So I'm just going to give some quick examples from classrooms K-5 as well as 6-12, just so you can see what it looks like in the classroom, and we'll go from there. So I'm gonna turn off my camera because it was a little bit glitchy whenever I started to do that with the camera on, because I have some videos to show, and so I'll do a little pause here and I'll come right back. All right. All right, so the first example I'm going to share with you comes from kindergarten. This is one of our very first lessons that we rolled out when we did the engineering design process. And it's called Huff and Puff Engineering, so it's all about the three little pigs. And we essentially give kindergartners a chance in pairs to build a better house for the three little pigs, to protect their three little pigs. And so we supply some materials, we walk them through the process, obviously. They have to draw out a plan of how they want to use the materials, and then they build a house. And then we put our little pig inside, and we get out a very sometimes strong, sometimes not so strong hairdryer to test out their structures to see if they will survive. Before I go on, I did want to share this picture because I think it was cute. This is a picture of our some kindergarten students, and they've all got pencils behind their ears because they feel like engineers wear pencils behind their ears. So, all right, so let me show you a little bit about this. So essentially, here is the planning process, and so they are given some, like I say, materials, toothpicks, marshmallows. We have them draw out their plans, and then if you can see from that plan, not only the initial plan, but also how they improved it as they go. So there's that rapid prototyping, test, and rebuild. One thing I did want to note about this is you'll see the materials change. So on some of these pictures, you'll see gumdrops being used. And what we found out as we started rolling this process out was the gumdrops were too sturdy. And so the houses that the students built with the gumdrops were very strong and secure. The blow dryer could not knock them over. And so we decided to switch out the gumballs and not use that anymore, and instead use marshmallows, which again produced more failure. And so again, when you bring that failure into the classroom and you start these projects, please make sure that you're building that failure right in. Now, I'll just show you a quick little video. Once you do have success with these projects, this is what it looks like whenever you start testing these out and they work. So this is one of our kindergarten teachers doing a real test of one of the structures. All right, so a lot of excitement there, obviously, and you'll find that whenever you start testing these things out, a lot of excitement whenever they finally achieve success. So again, that's Huff and Puff Engineering, tied to Three Little Pigs. It's a literature-based engineering project. All right, another one of our original K-5 engineering projects that you may have tried with students before. It's called Egbert. And so this one is all about angles and friction. And basically, essentially, students need to design a structure that will allow their egg not to splat whenever it goes down a ramp. And so what we've done here is we've got these cars. You can see this young lady is holding up one of the cars we're using for this lesson, and she's got their structure built behind it. So essentially, they need to plan out, again, using a scarce amount of materials. A lot of times we build a budget into this. So, for example, you might have a $25 budget, and each cotton ball is $3. Each roll of tape is another $5. And so they need to not only plan out how they're going to build it, but how they're going to spend their money wisely to get the best bang for the buck. Now, once they build their contraption and they put it into a Ziploc bag so the egg doesn't splat everywhere, they put it in the back of the car and they run it down a ramp. And the ramp can have varying levels of friction as well. So there may be carpet, there may be felt, there may be just straight wood to do the different tests on. The other thing that's great about this is it starts talking about angles and how the slope matters in addition to the friction. So these students have their contraptions that they've built along their ramps. And so one thing I did want to share is this short little video again of success of this particular group of students. They're checking their bag to see if the contraption they made actually protected their egg.
Go ahead, pull it out of the bag. You can open it. All right, pull it out. Do we have any yolk? Any cracks? Egbert lives!
So there, obviously, you see the excitement of Egbert surviving to live another day. And one thing I love about this one is this is a highly high amounts of failure within this lesson. A lot of eggs cracking. But one thing you'll never see is these students give up. They persist, they problem solve, and they make it better and better each time.
Go ahead, pull it out of the bag.
So the next example here is a middle grades example. So this is a, like I say, middle school example. This is regarding density, and it's called Whatever Floats Your Boat. And so this process is a little bit different, of course, a little bit more involved now that we're here in the middle grades. A lot more math, a lot more charting, a lot more figuring out what is the ratios and budgeting. And so in this particular case, what this lesson is all about is weight distribution as well as the density of the liquid that they're floating in. And so right now you're seeing the planning phase. And so these ladies are adjusting the materials. I believe that's a piece of foam that they're trying to cut to size their boat. You see they've got their styrofoam, they've got their plans out here. And what they're doing is they're building a boat and they'll be testing it. They test it into two different types of water. You've got just regular tap water, and then the other boat that they have is tested in a large vat of salt water. So a ton of salt placed into that container to test their boat out. And so essentially when they build these, they have to make two identical boats. One that goes in the regular water and one that goes into the salt water. And then they test to see how much weight each of them can support. And so here you're starting to see some of the weight being added. And so each one of these are measured out. So each one, I believe, is, well, I'm not sure exactly how many grams is each one. You can see the salt next to there. So you've got the two bins, and this is the saltwater bin. And so essentially what you're showing students is you're showing them not only the process of how to build a better boat and get the most weight, which is part of the prospect and the task, but also they're recording how much weight is supported by each of these so they can track the density and see how that has an impact. Our middle school teachers, the reason that they came up and they decided to do this project is because density is a very tricky concept for middle schoolers. It's hard to teach density. And so like I said before, we look for our concepts that are the most difficult to start planning these lessons around to really give them a more in-depth, hands-on view of what density means. So here, of course, you see the testing, and I just threw this other picture in here just because it shows, even in middle school, just like the elementary school, when you start testing, it brings a crowd. And that's one of the wonderful things about these projects is these students that are leading the way and showing that they've got the best structure. Then you start seeing all these other kids come around and start pulling their ideas and start asking them how they did it. And it's just really great to have that sharing of ideas openly within a classroom. So that is Whatever Floats Your Boat. That's a middle grades example. Now we're heading into high school a little bit. So this is a high school example. This is a high school civics class. And this is a class that was studying the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And so essentially what this project was all about is building out 3D symbols to represent one of the Bill of Rights, the constitutional amendments. And so, again, what you're seeing here is the actual 3D building in Tinkercad, which is the program that they use for this, which is a free program that works on Chromebooks, PCs, MacBooks. Excellent program for 3D modeling and very intuitive as well. And so essentially what these students are doing is they are building their own creative representation of that amendment. And so they're building out a symbol that shows their understanding of what that amendment is all about. This is one of our facilitators, Mr. Will Allred, walking them through the process of how to use Tinkercad and build these out. We are lucky in Moore County that we do have 3D printers available, and so we were able to take these designs that students made and 3D print them and actually have them in their hands. And the teacher here, Mr. Morris, utilized these to, again, get a deeper knowledge of those amendments. And again, that was a topic that was kind of one of the trickier ones to teach. And so here they have a hands-on 3D design built. And one thing I will also mention, if you've ever worked with 3D design and 3D printing, you know there's a lot of failure baked into that. And so we give students guides, but we don't show them everything so that when they do get to their print, they see that, oh, there's something that was too thin or there was something that wasn't connected. And that's a way for them to kind of rebuild and recreate and improve on their designs. Heading back to middle school, this is a grade 6 through 8 example that we developed in the last few years. And this one is all about light and diffusion and clarity and how to bring students more understanding of how light works in different mediums, and also get them engaged with the building process of how to create a filter. So what you're seeing here is we've got Sphero robots that our students are programming and using, and that's essentially what they're using as their flashlights. And so the engineering and design part of this is they have a budget, they have a set amount of materials to create a filter for the Sphero in order to get the most amount of light through the sensor and to the sensor. And so what you're seeing here is obviously students building out of styrofoam. They get to talk about the reflection of the light within that styrofoam. They get to talk about the diffusion between the barriers. And as they figure that out and they start testing, they test it with an app, the Google Science Journal app, which automatically records different intensity of light. And so that's how they record their numbers, that's how they test them out. They check different ideas and they change the ratios to see how it works and how the light is transmitted through those flashlights. And here you see them being a little bit spooky after they're done. So again, the design here is building out the filter so that you can have as much of an intensity light and a directed light towards that sensor to get that as high as you possibly can. And that is built again through the Spheros. I'll just go back here real quick. You can see he's got it in his hand. This is using his phone. That's a phone app. This guy Google Science Journal. And then the actual Sphero you can program with the Chromebook. All right, some more Sphero, and now we're back into high school. This is an advanced math lesson that works extremely well with the Spheros, and it's curling. And so if you're not sure what that is like in the Winter Olympics when they take these stones and they slide them across the ice and they try to get them as close to the center as possible and as many as they can. And so essentially what you're seeing here is in advanced math, they are working through speed, direction, rate of motion. They're working on the timing and the ratios and how to get it exactly correct so that it is as close to the middle of the circle as possible. And this is a awesome task for students to do, very hands-on, brings it really to life, allows them to apply those math skills and see it in real time. And the other thing that's great about this is it builds a lot of failure into it. So what students learn about this as they start to do their curling, and I'll show you here in a video in just a second, is that there is human error built into this. There is real life error built into these lessons. And so the Spheros don't
don't move perfectly. You know, in a textbook, you'll have a certain formula, you'll plug it in, and it'll say it'll go exactly 18.34 feet. Well, whenever you test it out and you actually program the Sphero, the same inputs that you're using in that textbook formula, when you get the output, you might be at 19.3 feet. You might be at 17.87 feet. When they do the measurements and how far they are off from the center of the circle, that is a real conversation about the difference between theory and practice. And so one of the great aspects of these lessons, especially when you get into high school, is having them do the traditional mode and then getting out into the real world and actually producing the outcomes and seeing how closely they match. And then talking about that. Why does that difference happen, and why is that important? So here's just a quick video of Sphero with advanced math. All right, so moving on. This is a math-directed lesson. We have some drones in Moore County that we love to utilize, and this is a math lesson where students build an obstacle course given materials that their drones can fly through using freewheeling driving, manual driving, and not necessarily program driving. So the way that it works, you see this group of girls has their planning sheet in front of them. They are replanning, if I remember right from this picture. We've got pool noodles, we've got lengths of PVC pipe and connectors, and what they are trying to do is they're trying to figure out how to get this back in their budget. And so they've went over budget. You can see their PVC pipes there on the ground, their connectors, and they're trying to reconfigure to see how can they build the obstacle course that they want out of their budget. So each group builds a different section of the course. And so this group is building their own piece that the drone will try to fly through as they go. And again, this is a math-centric lesson. And so essentially they're working on those budgets. They're working on trying to figure out how they keep it within budget. They're working on structures, and they're working on shapes and best width for a drone to get through whenever it's flying through the course. Advancing here, you can see there's a student working to put together their obstacle course. This is PVC pipe, very cheap. You can get PVC pipe and cutters and make this out, and then these pieces are forever. You can use them a lot of different ways in a lot of different projects. And this is just a quick view of what it looks like. So now they're testing out. They're going through two of the pieces of the obstacle course, and the pair in the back, these students are driving manually with these drones. Alright, so a bit of a failure there. They didn't quite make it through, but again, retry and try again and improve. And you can also, one other thing I want to mention is the creativity within these projects. Every group, whenever you do these projects, you're doing it, you know you're doing it correctly when each group has their own unique take on it. They can show their creativity, they can still do the task, but also make it very much their own. So you can see that in this video. You've got lots of different structures here. So here we are back in middle school, learning about simple machines. And this is the way that we do our Rube Goldberg machines, which you can Google that. That's basically just building a complex machine to do a simple task. And so we use pegboard and we use metal pegs. We reuse those over and over again. And again, students are given a set amount of materials, set amount of budget, and in this one they are to create their Rube Goldberg machine using as many simple machines as they can and also labeling them as they go. And so here you see the PVC pipe that we're reusing from before. We've got cardboard, we've got tape, we've got the metal hooks, we've got pulleys, we've got levers, we've got wedges, and this is how these middle school students have been using these machines. And I just want to show a quick example. So here, first one is a failure of a Rube Goldberg machine failure. And so this is a group that had to redesign and redesign and redesign. And then finally, this wasn't completely a success, but it was a lot closer than the first one. All right, so that got close. And again, in this particular instance, a lot of times these students never succeeded. And so even though they never succeeded in doing the task exactly as they want to do, they learned a lot about simple machines, and they never gave up on the process. Back to high school here. This is just a quick example of slope and rate of motion and rate of speed and speed change. And so students were building ramps at different angles, and they were programming the spheros, which can go a certain ratio of speed, to go over the ramp and to land in that pillow there that you can see. And so the design part of this is building the ramp at which height, which angle, to make sure that you're getting your slope correct as you fly your sphero over the ramp. So again, these students worked hard, redesigned, and here is an example of a final success from these high school students. So you'll notice that pillow there. So if you're using spheros to do this, make sure you have a soft landing. That's one thing that we learned. So again, ramps, high school, great examples. Back to K5. This is a classic one that we've used for a couple years. Solar ovens to build s'mores, or I'm sorry, to cook s'mores, built out of old pizza boxes that we get donated, aluminum foil, and this is all about convection. How can you build an oven that will melt your s'more the most successfully? And so you can see the different materials, again, budgets, plans, making sure that you've got the right amount of materials, a finite amount of resources. That is another big point in these projects, is when students are working through these, when the materials run out, they run out. We put a cap on that. We kind of try to make it as real world as possible. Here's the s'more in the bag waiting to be cooked, and at the outcome here, you can see once these get put into the sun, the convection does work and they do melt, and they're able to enjoy their s'mores on a nice sunny day. This is another one that we use Lego WeDo robotics for. So WeDo robotics are great tools. You can build lots of different simple machines. And this one are some marshmallow catapults. And so using Lego WeDo to not only build out the catapult, but also the different levers and the power and the speed, and getting that just right, and also the programming abilities to be able to program these robots to work their catapult as well as they can. A lot of failures in this one. So here's one. They just didn't have it right. They didn't build their contraption correct, didn't throw it nearly as well as they could. They had to go back and redesign. Here are another couple videos. I believe this is another failure here.
Yep.
Not quite. So now we've got some success. So again, retool until you find success. Now it's a very strong catapult. Good job. All right, so I want to finish up here just because I thought this was a really cute clip. When you start doing engineering, it's always very important to talk about, what do engineers do? What are they? How are they? To make it an accessible career for students. You know, a lot of times students, K-12, they hear the word engineer and they think it's unattainable. And so we really try to talk to students all the way down to kindergarten about engineers, what it is, problem solving, and why it's important for the world. So I thought I'd just end up the examples here. This is just a cute example of a kindergarten class speaking about what do engineers do.
Talk about engineers. What is an engineer and what do they do?
They build.
Tell your partner beside of you.
Engineers build something for like robots, but some engineers control they can make some paper. And they can make this robot. Guess what? They can make a house.
So let's.
So I love that because they're talking about what it is. They're envisioning themselves as engineers, and you can see she took control of the conversation, and that's another great piece to see. All right, so those are our examples. Like I said, these are just a few examples, and in my next set of slides here, I'm going to talk through how you can find the resources and materials behind these examples, and also a lot more that you can pull from in your day-to-day work.
All right, hope you enjoyed those examples. Now just to close out, just some next steps and opportunities to engage. This is a new statewide initiative, so I mentioned that before. Really excited to kick this off. Across the state, we've got LEAs that are diving deep with 2-year plans, and then we've got the conference and a lot of support for educators across the state. It's a partnership between the Regional Comp Center, which the Serve Center kind of executes. So that's the Regional Comp Center, Region 6, and North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. Our primary sponsor is Dr. Mary Hemphill, who's Director of Academic Standards for North Carolina. Really pleased to work with Mary. She's a wonderful advocate for these skills. So the project, just to give you an idea of what the statewide project is, it's just launching this year, really just the last couple months. We're getting it off the ground. It's got 4 main components. So the first main component that is just getting off the ground right now is cohorts of LEAs, so districts across North Carolina. Will be working to develop 2-year plans on how to bring K-5 engineering and design into their classrooms, and then also how does that link to their 612 outcomes. So what are the careers and the pathways that each county wants to get their kids excited about. And so we generate that excitement in K-5, and then we pay it off in 612 with those cohorts. And we're also going to have some regional champions, educators from across the state, and also a statewide collaborative built out. So that's the statewide impact first part. The annual spring conference, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail here in a moment. That's a great opportunity for you to learn more, to send folks to get their hands on these kind of tasks. It's a free conference, and so I'll come back to that in just a second. We've got standard support. We're going to develop some modules to really support that work, and then resources and materials, quarterly newsletters, and we're going to get together and really try to make this a robust support network for teachers across the state. All right, so the first thing coming up is the conference. So we're back face-to-face. We're excited about it. This is a 2-day conference. It's completely free registration, which is made possible through that partnership. It's face-to-face. It's on April 19th and 20th, and so that's coming up here in just a couple months. Day 1 is traditional conference, so we've got great sessions, 40 hands-on concurrent sessions, great presenters this year. I really think you should check it out. I think you would love the topics. And then day 2 is really exciting. That is our elementary robotics and engineering showcase, and I'll show you a little video to give you an idea of what that looks like on day 2. And so it's a great opportunity to connect with educators like yourself across North Carolina that are interested in STEM in elementary schools, and it's hosted by Moore County Schools. This is the link to register for the conference. It'll give you all the details, and there is a max of attendees. And so if you're interested, please sign up quick, because I've got a feeling after NC Ties, things might fill up pretty quick. Instead of playing it within this video, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to actually play the high quality version of what the conference looks like. And so I'm just going to show a quick little video of what you can expect if you come to the conference, especially the elementary robotics and engineering portion of the conference.
The atmosphere
here, the gym is bubbling. I mean, just buzz, buzz, buzz. Wow.
This event is probably the premier event for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and certainly in grades K through 5. So we've got a lot of extra educators from 2 states that are here for professional development and sharing ideas with us, and really all comes together and culminates in what appears to be nothing more than a grand celebration of learning.
Oh my goodness, I had hundreds of little bodies running around me talking about bits and gigabytes and all of these different terms that no one has any clue about, but they did, and that was interesting to see that they knew what exactly they were talking about. I had no clue. But it's absolutely wonderful to see these students come in and just have a wonderful time with using the technology and changing the world that we live.
I mean, I'm amazed with how they have these tablets and how they're able to program these things to get these robots to move around like they do. That's so exciting.
All this collaboration, they're talking, communicating, these real life skills. This is amazing, and I want to bring it back to our county.
Just the camaraderie, the teamwork, the pride that these little 7-year-olds feel is amazing.
And I love the teamwork. The kids are super excited, and they're supporting each other, which I saw a group say, "It's okay, like we got this. We can do this." So it's fun to see that.
There are ways to tell children are learning beyond just test measures. And so showcasing student learning by them actually demonstrating what they can do under circumstances such as those that we create in a robotics competition, I think is one that offers a lot of value to us and really demonstrates that no matter where our children come from, that we're adding value to where they're going.
The important part of being here is basically just seeing how the technology is used to help broaden the horizons of our students. I just recently learned that more than 30% of the jobs that are going to be offered in 2030 are not even invented yet. So having our kids come here and actually be a part of something and build things is awesome.
Through the activity of robotics, they're able to apply what they've learned in science and technology and engineering and mathematics throughout the year. It's also a way that our teachers can kind of show off some of the more creative ways that they've taught the core standards in those subject areas.
Oh, we love it. Yeah. Absolutely love it. It's one of those things that's completely changed the entire way I've taught, the entire way I've managed my classroom. And it's made me a better teacher. It's made my kids better students.
I think it's really cool that we get to bring what we know to help other teachers. We get really good questions, it helps us think about it, but it's just, this is the way we have to teach. And the learning that goes on, and the success. And like you said, to learn how to fail. There are adults who don't know how to fail, but we've got a whole new culture in Moore County, and I think it needs to spread everywhere.
I love how the energy is, the kids are just so excited, and the support that the whole county gives to the kids. I am looking forward to taking that experience to my county.
I think it does show like all the good things our county is doing when I know that they're changing the narrative of this, but like that our county in particular, like maybe just like the teachers aren't doing it or our kids just can't. And I think that especially something like this shows that like that's the opposite. Like our kids can and they are.
And they're doing amazing things.
All right, so there we have it. That is the conference. Hope you are interested and you can come out and join us, and I hope you enjoy the session. Building Engineers K-5 classrooms, if you have any questions, if you have any help that you need with any of these concepts, or you want to get started in your own classroom, I am more than happy to help. Again, my name is Steve Johnson, and my email is sjohnson@serve.org. So good luck, thanks for listening, and I hope you have a great rest of your school year.